Hi, and welcome to Your Dream Power, part of the Win-Win Network. And today, as we're exploring how you can use your inside powers to alter your life and transform you into the person you really want to be, I have a very special guest coming to us from the islands in the Caribbean. We have Tina Hall, and she's going to share with us about restorative health and how we can make ourselves better. Probably from the inside out, right, Tina?
Yes, 100%. Yes. Hi, Patricia. Nice to meet
Hi.
you.
Thank you for joining us today. And, I just want to learn more about what it is that you do, because, a lot of what I talk to people about is about shifting their mindset and how they can transform their life that way. But I get the feeling that you deal more with relationships and just share with me how you help people to transform their lives.
Yeah, so I come from not just a relationship perspective, but a body perspective. So more about your health. And our health is our wealth. And so you can have all the money in the world, all the time in the world, you don't have your health, it affects absolutely everything, including relationships with your family, your friends, your neighbors, everything and everyone that you interact with. And so my role is to guide you back to your health. So it could be mentally, emotionally, and or physically, and maybe even spiritual health as well, because as we're realizing with this awakening of this universe, that the spirituality of and connecting deeper into ourselves and our intuition is so important for us to be able to move forward in an aligned way, in an easy way, in flow, instead of being in this constant struggle and being in our minds so much that we have the doubts and the worries and the fears, which you talk a lot about. And so I've combined them all into my method called the infinitely you method. And I really work with mind, body, heart, and soul. And so that way you can heal on all levels. And every piece of us is part of the puzzle. We can't just heal the body and not expect the mind to have an issue and a play in it. We can't heal the mind and not expect the soul to have part of it. We can't expect to heal the soul and not have the heart to be a part of it. So we are a whole person. And so I help the whole person and piece it all together. So we're in that healing space so that you are healthy, you're stronger, you're more successful, you feel excited about life, you feel enlivened, and you then are capable of being who you truly are meant to be.
So Tina, let's look at that health aspect, because I've heard people talk about when you have a disease, that a lot of times you have actually caused that to happen in your life. What do you think about that?
So so the word cause would probably cause people to have a little wrinkle.
Yeah,
So,
right.
attract.
Okay.
So, and the attraction is because we're not in flow, we're not in a balance, we're not in alignment with our soul self, and we've got issues either mentally, emotionally, and physically that we have allowed ourselves to not address. So we have a generation, well, many generations, that didn't have that luxury of addressing emotional traumas and emotional experiences and things that happened to us in the past, because we didn't have the time for it. It was, we got to push through it all. We've got to get it done. We've got to, we still have to live. We still have to survive. We still have to figure out how to keep our children alive, keep ourselves alive. And we have a tendency to push all of that other stuff under the rug and not deal with it. And eventually it comes back and it's in our face, and it's saying, okay, if you're not going to listen to me when I'm whispering at you, telling you there's pain in our body and you need to address it, and there's a condition that all of a sudden you get, or you get sick frequently, more often, and you're struggling, you're feeling out of sorts, you're ignoring all the signals and all the signs, then your body's going to start to scream at you. Then you get diagnosed with a disease or an illness or a condition of some sort, which takes time, more time to unravel than if you just dealt with the stuff that was in front of us. So the good news is that we can still heal, and we can still become the whole, and we can still get rid of those conditions, diseases, illnesses, and pain. It's just going to take probably a little longer.
Okay. So tell me, how much does something like stress cause problems in people's lives?
Stress is the huge factor. In my opinion, stress is the number one thing. So my experience is, I have 30 years worth of experience in the health field. And if you are not managing your stress, there's cortisol levels and our adrenaline levels get altered in our bodies. And these hormones are not supposed to be in a toxic level, which they can. So what happens with stress is that we have everyday stress. So our life happens, we're going along. Stress is not necessarily a bad thing all the time. But if we've got a traumatic situation that lasts for a long time, our cortisol and our adrenaline levels go up. And maybe they're at a 3 for a few months, maybe even close to a year. And then all of a sudden, our bodies are not able to completely release that. And it goes down maybe to a 2 once we manage some of that stress. Then let's say we have another stressful situation that lasts a little bit longer. We're at a 5 now. Now our new normal to come back down to might be a 3. So we are not able to regulate our stress levels as we have consistent stressors that are occurring in our life over a chronic period of time. So it gets locked in at our cellular level, and those cells then start to alter, and it affects the systems within the body. And then that alters the other hormones, which then alters maybe how a system works or how it functions. And then you've got the mindset that comes into play, because all of a sudden the mind's saying, oh, we're sick, we're unwell, we're maybe even going to die, or we've got this disease, and we get into a heightened state of stress even more, because now we're freaking out on the possibilities of what it means. And so it's just compounding constantly, and the body can only take so much.
So what do you see as some of the things that people can do today to help alleviate some of that stress, or to be even aware? Because I think so often, we get in stressful situations, and we, things like you said, compound. And sometimes we don't even realize that we're stressed because we've become so used to feeling that way.
Yes.
And, living that kind of lifestyle that we're not even aware that we have stress.
One of my clients, after her second energy healing session, she looked at me and she said, Tina, I did not know how much stress I was under, and I can't remember the last time I felt so relaxed. So we are constantly bombarded with stress. And this society, I think there's rarely anybody who isn't. So it has to be something we're more conscious of. So what would I look for? If you're not sleeping properly, either can't get to sleep, or you're waking up and you can't get back to sleep. You're not drinking properly, enough water. You're not consuming the right foods. You're eating out of habit, but because of stress. So it's the junk foods, the comfort foods, the greasy foods, we have a tendency to go towards the pastas and all that kind of the carbs, because those are comfort foods and the body craves it when we're in stress. Then you're looking at your snappy. You don't have tolerance for your children most of the time, or your partner, and little things become these huge blowout things, and you're just thinking, oh my gosh, like what the heck was why was I feeling this way, or why was I reacting that way? If you're seeing any of these signs, it's really a good indication that your stress levels are pretty high.
Okay. So how do you take a person and help them to restore their health?
Yeah, so using my method, what I do is we do a little bit of mindset work, because it's part of the whole person. And then I do energy work, which helps clear and clean and take out old energies, old thoughts, stories, and beliefs, maybe from our past, from our childhood, maybe even past lives, if you believe in that. And really release the body from all of that. And then we fill you back up with loving light and energy, and having the intention that your body is going to be restored and healed and replenished with love. And love really is the answer to all of it.
Okay, so I want to get back to something you just said.
Sure.
When people talk about past lives, because I've heard people say that, and I'm not sure that I myself believe in that, but every once in a while I'll read something, I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe we do, because we're spirits, we're spiritual beings living in a physical body.
Mhm.
And who knows, if those spirits get to come back more than once. So tell me about somebody you've worked with maybe that has believed that, and how they felt about that, or maybe you've felt that way too.
Yeah, so I'm with you, Patricia. I honestly, man, the first time I had a client have that kind of reaction, I was like, I was a little freaked out, because it's not something that I've explored. So I also do Akashic records. And during some of the sessions that I've had with clients, they have had past life experiences. And I also, when I was doing some process through my training, have had a past life experience where I felt I was a witch, and I was in that era, and I was being burned at the stake. And this is why I had a pattern in my life that was being created in my now experience. So our soul has a journey. And although we're in a physical being and a physical body right now, that soul goes from different bodies to different bodies and has different experiences, and accumulates all that information. So when that information is gathered, then sometimes in our lifetime, whatever lifetime it is, you have those patterns that get brought up. And it could be similar to mine. One lady actually had an amazing experience where she went from the Elizabethan era to Hitler's era, and she was actually a warrior for the Hitler Youth, and she was doing some atrocious things and needed forgiving for those things. So it is a possibility. It is running through our now experience. It's not something that I look for. It's not something that I go into unless it's meant to be healed in this lifetime.
That must be fascinating. The first time that happened to you, because I know I feel like what I do is a bit woo-woo. I mean, it is a little woo-woo.
Right.
And you have to be careful how you present that to businesses or to people, so that they start to become aware of what they're really not aware of.
Right.
But I imagine the first time that must have been a bit like, oh my gosh, because I keep telling people, if you'd have told me I'd have believed the things I do now, 10
Yeah,
years ago, I'd have thought you were crazy. So, you know,
100%.
it is the awareness of it all.
Yeah, and not everybody has it. So it doesn't mean that everybody's going to go through it. And it doesn't mean that you won't. And it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. I had one lady a couple days ago actually have it where she just felt oppressed by all of it. And she felt really heavy and like she had this weight on her shoulders and her back. And it's because they actually had weighed her down at some point in her past life and tried to drown her because she was outspoken. But now that's translating in her life today is that she's has a tendency to really reserve what she says because of the fear of being outspoken. So it will play out in this lifetime. It's just a matter of how much healing you've done through those different experiences. And our souls all have different experiences. So sometimes it's traumatic and sometimes it's not. So it just depends on where you are, and that soul is on its journey.
Oh, that's so fascinating. So yeah, I'll have to read a little more about that. So the people would have their journey. So does their soul continue from where it left off, or do you have to learn things all over again, or?
It's remembered. So in the Akashic records, it is your book of life. And so it's basically your soul's journey from day one, now, and even to the future. So what I do as a consultant is I get permission to open up your records, and we have a conversation and we discuss what's going on with your body, your mind, your heart, and your soul, and your life's journey. Sometimes we regress back into childhood, sometimes the past lives, sometimes just in the present. It really depends on the person and where they are and if they're ready to hear the information. And sometimes you're just not ready. So whatever is open, whatever you're open to receiving is what you have the experience of. And so then I'm guided. They go through me and they guide me and guide the client so that they get what they need to heal, to release, to let go of what's not serving them anymore.
Oh, that's fascinating. Oh,
So cool.
so has anybody ever kind of scared you with what they were telling you?
Well, the first time it ever happened was actually in my clinic. I was doing cranial sacral therapy, which is a kind of energy. And she had regressed to the point where she was in her mother's womb. And she was going through the birthing experience, and it was very traumatic and very emotional. And she felt like she was unwanted and not needed and unworthy and all of these things. And I came out of that session freaking out a little bit because this was 25 years ago. And so this was all new to me. I'm like, oh, I'm not sure I'm ready for any of that. I allowed the process. I was in it. I stayed. I was, able to stay in my energy of it all. But it was really eye-opening that could happen and that I was part of it. And any of my journeys with my clients, it's always fascinating because there's been clients that have completely healed from cancer and completely healed from one woman couldn't walk for 12 years without a wheelchair or crutches. And by the end of our sessions, she was completely walking down the street and back from her pharmacy without any assistance. Like, that is miracle. It's amazing. And the body can heal itself. And if you need help, then it can also heal with others too.
Yeah, and that's amazing because my accountability partner who does the same kind of coaching I do, he was telling me about his dad is in his 90s, and he just got him to shift his thinking. And his dad was having a lot of difficulty walking, and now he's dancing, and he was having trouble with his eyesight. And he said, now, Dad, you know exactly what to do, how to, adjust and start thinking correctly. And he was walking down the street one day, and all of a sudden he just could see, and he hadn't been able to see very well. So it is amazing. And I too know a lady who cured herself of cancer just by, doing the meditation and, shifting her mindset. It's amazing what the mind can do, but it can also cause you so much heartache. And, when you talk about experiences people have, we don't realize sometimes by the words we say to somebody or the actions we do, what kind of a negative experience that person may be getting and how that can really impact their lives.
Yes.
So if you've seen that, I'm sure you have seen that in some of your clients that, maybe even people that love them that just said, something that maybe they twisted the wrong way. Or I remember telling somebody about an experience when I was a kid. My dad was very, very ill, and he chose to have surgery the day before my 9th birthday.
Oh, no.
And I could not understand why he chose, because he could have done the day before, the day after, and he chose the day before. And then my mom just thought it was so important that I got to see him on my birthday, which was horrible because he was in really bad shape. And that impacted me in a way that, I never asked him, why did you choose?
Right.
Why did you feel it was more important to have that surgery the day before my birthday?
And it could have been as simple as him thinking that he'd be totally fine and he'd be able to actually celebrate it with you.
Yeah. And I never asked. I just felt, I just suppressed all that.
Sure. There's a lot of situations like that. I mean, one of my clients, she had recalled a memory of being a young girl and her father used to beat her, and remembering the ferocity and the hate in his eyes when he used to do it, and also the pleasure. And so can you imagine, as a young child, translating that information in your small little brain, making it mean that it's something about you, and it's not, it's about them. But our minds cannot kind of jive that information for us. So we have to put it in perspective as an adult, realizing that, and maybe he did have those feelings and it's his pain and it was wrong on all levels. And we then, as an adult, have to step back and go, okay, he may not know what he's doing, but it doesn't mean that I'm bad or that I deserved it or I'm unworthy or all of those things, the stories that we then tell ourselves.
Right.
Which then play out in our adult lives. And then we feel like there's something wrong with us. And there's nothing wrong with us. This is the journey that we're coming through right now, is we're experiencing the shedding of all the thoughts, stories, and beliefs that our parents, maybe our grandparents, maybe our friends, maybe our teachers along the lifeline have told us, so that we started to believe. And the biggest lesson for me, Patricia, was for me to actually realize that our beliefs are usually not real. And I was like, what do you mean? What? Of course they're real. No, they don't come from us. It's not the truth. If it's not coming from love, it's not true. That's your marker. If it's not positive, if it's not uplifting, if it's not inspiring, it's not the truth.
I think one of the best things I learned when I was in my early 20s was how important the words are that you say to people.
Oh, 100%.
And I was an educator for 32 years and raised 3 children. And I was so grateful that I learned that lesson early, so that when my children were born, I was very careful the words I said. And as a teacher, I was also very careful of the words I said. Was I perfect? Well, no, because none of us are perfect.
Right.
I felt that I often would bite my tongue, rather than say something that I thought could impact a child,
Yeah.
because it's so important. And, we don't always realize, we're not aware how those words and actions can impact somebody else because of the stories they then tell themselves.
Right. And so isn't it Hashimoto, who was a scientist who basically said some nice things to water? And then they did a test. They looked under the microscope, and the water, the crystal itself was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was fully aligned. And then they did another glass of water where he was really harsh with the glass of water, and then put it under the test tube, and it was broken, and it was disjointed, and it was not beautiful. So the power of a word is just so amazing, and we really have to be careful what we say and how we say it, because it has an impact for a lifetime.
Sure does. Yeah, those words are so important.
And what we say to ourselves too.
Yeah.
It's not just to others. Like sometimes we're our own worst enemy. We have a tendency to really be the mean girl or the mean boy to ourselves, and we can berate ourselves and judge ourselves and criticize ourselves so badly.
Yes.
And we're listening.
Yes. Well, I always tell my clients, and maybe you can relate to this or offer something more to this, but I always tell my clients, when they wake up in the morning or even throughout the day, if they're feeling really energetic and feeling good, that's because those thoughts spinning in their mind are positive, uplifting thoughts. But on those days, if they wake up and they're feeling kind of down, or throughout the day, one thing is wrong and then another thing is wrong, and they start feeling really down, those thoughts that are spinning that we're not really conscious of, because they say 10 to 50,000 thoughts go through your mind in a day, and we'd be exhausted if we thought of them all. But whatever thoughts are spinning are affecting your mood. So you really have to become very aware of how you're feeling.
Yes.
And when you're not feeling good, shift it. Find a way to shift it.
Exactly. So your emotions are your, what I call it, your internal guidance system. So they're going to tell you that there are negative or positive thoughts that are running the show right now. So if you're, like you're saying, feeling good, those are positive thoughts. We don't have to worry about them. If we're feeling bad, then there's a thought that's behind the emotion that's telling us something's wrong, and we have to question it. And then once we realize what it is, we ask ourselves a simple question: is it even true? And most of the time it's not.
Yeah.
And then we can reframe it to the truth, and then we can release it and let it go.
Right.
It doesn't have to have power over us.
Exactly.
That's the beauty of it.
Well, Tina, I thank you for coming on our show today, but I do want to give you a chance to talk about, I know you had a free gift that you were giving people about a meditation, and maybe just tell people how they could get in touch with you and things like that. So, please share with our audience,
Sure.
what you can do.
Great. So if you want to look me up on Facebook, I'm on Tina's Clinic. If you want me on LinkedIn, it's Tina A. Hull. And if you want to go to my website, I have a few guided meditations. I also have a booklet called, what happens when you get diagnosed with an illness, condition, or disease. And you're welcome to download any and all of them. They're all free, and they're on my website at www.tina with an S -massageclinic.com. And I also have free 5-day masterclass coming up on the 22nd of August at 2:30 p.m. And it's going to be about healing your body. So if you want to join us for that, you can message me, or you can find me on any of those links.
Okay. Thank you so much, Tina. And I appreciate you sharing with us. So check out Tina's website and get the information there, and, you know, join her for some information on healing, so that you can go through life not living those stories that are not true.
Yes.
And, you know, really transforming, you know, yourself into the person you want to be.
Yes. And
So
the
again,
person you
Tina.
are meant to be.
Exactly. Okay, Tina, thank you so much. And, you know, follow the links in the show notes for Tina's information.
Thanks, Patricia. I really appreciate it. Had fun.